anyway, it's 8:04. Weird War II is on the march. Glad you guys came by. So tonight, I threw up kind of like a poll and just kind of to pick you guys' brains on what you guys want to do. And tonight, I figured that we were all kind of talking about the timelines or the games that some people like certain Weird War II games because the background story is cool or whatever. So tonight is your chance to let everyone else know what your weird World War II background or time frame or whatever it is. Okay. Now we've currently got but yeah. So okay, so for an example, J-Boy, what's up, buddy? I tried to call you a couple times today, dude, but your phone isn't taking messages. I was gonna wish you a happy birthday. I can't remember if your birthday's already passed or not. I keep forgetting your fucking birthday. You turned 50, dude. Ooh, shit! I'm not too far behind, bro. So Sean said that Suki, he's a guy that kind of was asking all the Weird War weirdos across Facebook, like, kind of how do you play your Weird War II, and it's kind of the inspiration from that. So Sean says he's currently doing early war in Operation Torch, and a time slip to the 20s fighting Berbers and Dingens, or genies, I guess they would be called. Ani and Southeast. That's cool, dude. So, like, that's awesome because I'm really into, like I've got a campaign, our Weird War II campaign is slowly going on our Facebook page or our YouTube channel. And we're still in July of 37. So basically we started a couple days before the Marco Polo Bridge incident in 37, and then we're just going to keep going, man. And so, like, for the most part, the world is so, like, I'll go ahead and just tell you what my guy, because I want you guys to see it as it evolves from where we start, but I'll give you a little history from up to that point. So in 1933, FDR is assassinated, okay, by Giuseppe Zingara, which was he was an Italian immigrant. Now this really happened. There was an assassination attempt on FDR's life by this guy, but he fucked it up and he killed, like, the mayor of, like, Chicago or some shit. But in my world, we're saying that it happened, and we're also throwing, like, a really heavy. He was a communist, right? So what happens is Garner, his name is John Cactus Jack Garner. He was the VP, the vice president, and he was kind of like an old dog, like a blue dog Southerner, like a Democrat, not like the Democrats you know today, but like he was old South, deep South, and so from that, what happens in America, it almost kind of starts the communist fear thing going on that we had in the 50s, the Red Scare. It's happening in the early 30s. So what happens is America, because Garner wasn't a big, like, FDR did the big, the New Hopes, or trying to do all the infrastructure jobs and all that.
The New Deal, dumbass.
New Deal stuff. But Cactus Jack didn't like that shit. So he was a businessman, he's a politician, so he kind of closed the country down and tried to the reconstruction program, the big ones that FDR had in place after the Great Depression, he kind of started to get rid of those. But anyway, so long story short, what happened? America becomes isolationist. Okay, they do not back there will not be any Lend-Lease. Okay, So as things progress, remember we're still in 37, but the American politics of the day will not do lend-lease. They are adamant to keep China open as a trading partner because of all the raw materials and whatnot. So America does still have that kind of, they're butting up against the Empire of Japan, and they're trying to keep China open for Westerners to to use the resources and whatnot. Now, on that same vein, um, Germany has seen has so Germany, when Germany comes into power, I believe it was in 30, or it might have been 30. I can't remember when it was, but like they kind of protested, and they basically said, "Hey, we want Germany's colonies back that they lost during World War One." Right? So that's worked into my whole time thing. So in the Pacific now, all the German colonies in the Pacific, it reverted to the Japanese. The Japanese attained that shit, a lot of it. Okay, so when in see 30, around 1930s, when the Japanese start fucking with the Chinese and all that crazy shit starts happening. So over the years, when the Nazis come to power, they have a choice to either back Japan, and Japan's having problems right now. Their government, the militaristic government, and then the civilian government, they're fighting. Hirohito is, fucking in his little castle, and no one knows what the fuck's going on, and but anyway, it's a big mess, right? So the Germans are like, you know what, and then the Nazis are like, well, fuck that, Japan is shaky on shaky ground. We're not sure what's going to happen with them. They're a small country. They got shit for fucking resources, right? But they have a huge navy and army and all that stuff. So what the Germans decide to do in my world is they start to invest into China. Okay, and even the Czechoslovakia, the Czechs send a Skoda. Skoda sends a plant into China to start building arms, an arms plant. And they're building like the LZ-35s and kind of weapons and like guns and whatever. And the Germans see the Czechs doing this, and there's this the warlords and Chiang Kai-shek, they're buying these weapons, and if they can't pay for it in money, they're paying for it with like stuff, be it opium, be it raw materials or whatever. So the Czechs start to develop this like great trade thing, right? Well, the Germans want a piece of that too, so they send Krupp in there, and then they start sending like military advisors in there to help the Chinese become more, a more like a professional army. So all of a sudden, you've got a stronger European presence that wasn't there historically. I mean, you had the Brits and you had the Americans, but you're starting to see the Germans and the Czechs are coming in here, and they're actually bringing plants. They're bringing factories. They're building factories to sell weapons to the Chinese. And the Japan's freaking out. They're like, wait a minute, we don't want the Chinese, trained first of all by Western standards, and then we don't want them to have modern weaponry as much as they're getting. So there's that tension right there too. So that's going on there. So the Nazis are, they're getting their foot into Asia, and they're still doing their normal shit, everywhere else. Now, in my world, the Italians, in 37, they've already pacified for the most part Ethiopia, right? Well, I believe it was I think it was in 37 where some Ethiopians tried to kill the viceroy or the general in Italy, and the Italians responded and like massacred like a shit ton of Ethiopians, like tens of thousands of them, right? But what in my world, what you don't know is that one of the first superhero, like superhumans, was that assassin. Okay, he was able to infiltrate the Italian. He's some sort of like, I didn't put a story behind him and what his abilities were, but he was able to infiltrate and almost actually kill the viceroy. And then what happened is they see this guy and they're like, holy fuck, this is like some superhuman dude. And the Italians freak out and they just start massacring a bunch of people in retaliation. Now, it's secret, but in my world, the superhumans have been found kind of spattering all around the world, but they haven't been like doing anything really. They haven't been. They've been keeping down low or whatnot. Now, also the because I dig the H.P. Lovecraft shit. Cthulhu cults. I'm kind of running with his timeline, Lovecraft's timeline that he wrote. I'm not so much doing what other writers have done because I don't want because there's so much fucking content there. But Lovecraft is going to be like law in what he wrote actually happened in the time frame that it happened in. So I'm working that stuff into the big picture. So there's been cults that have been discovered in America, and they've been suppressed by the FBI, and all that stuff, and around the world. So the mythos is known, but it's not like publicly known. You got like people are saying these are crazy, lunatics, and they're doing crazy shit or whatever. So that's what the story is. But they're around. The mythos are around, and they're an actual threat. So like that's what I like to do, guys. I like hard historical facts that are slightly, kind of nudged over or kind of, changed a little bit. Like the Spanish Civil War is going on, right? And although it's staying pretty on par, England's like preventing its people from joining it, and the U.S. is like cutting all ties, whatever. All that shit's actually happening, and the Germans are kind of like sending their ships out there to kind of blockade any kind of Republican, like reinforcements or supply from because they're backing the nationalists. But I'm thinking about like there was a point where the French were freaking the fuck out that the Germans were starting to send like their Condor units, their Condor Legion in there to help out with the nationalists. And the French were freaking the fuck out. They're like, oh shit, the Germans are massing up in there and they're going to attack Morocco. So the French were like freaking out, and they're like, evacuating their people thinking that the Germans were going to attack, but they didn't. But there's still that tension and shit. So it's stuff like that. I'm a student of history, and I really love to just like, I love timelines that are general, and if there's specific like events that happen, I'll do like super research on it. I'll research it, and I'll try to figure out how to manipulate it all. And that's what I like to do. And see, a lot of the fucking hardcore historic players, they scoff at fucking, Weird War gamers. And man, fuck those guys, because honestly, I have done, I used to play strict historical, dude, and I would, research the battles and all that shit. But when you start to think about how you could change things, and not just like, oh, there's tanks and they walk on legs, and then not something just broad and just pow, it's in your face. But if you actually start to work like politically, like, why would the Spanish join the Axis? That, let's say that's what you want to do in your world, and if you want to try to do it in a factual or like legitimate way, that's when you start doing this research. The Spanish were afraid to commit to Germany because they were happy with the relationship they had with the Brits, right? And the Brits were good, so they just kind of waited back. Don't get involved in this bullshit. We just had our Civil War and blah 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 blah. But I mean, who's to say that if England is incapacitated in however way, right? That the Spanish are like, well, fuck, the British are gone, or the Commonwealth collapses, or whatever it might be, right? The British Empire. See, that's the big thing with me, guys. And you'll find out as my campaign progresses. You cannot change World War II unless you get rid of the Commonwealth. You've got to break that thing up, dude. It's got to fail in some way. You cannot have the British holding out like they did. You can't have the Commonwealth you got to have problems in India. You got they had during this time, they had the famines and they had the uprisings, and you don't hear a lot about that. But India was teetering, dude. It was teetering from there was starvation, and it was crazy. And then it was all held together just like a gnat's wing, dude. And for you to, I mean, honestly, from what I've seen, you have got to prevent the Commonwealth from fucking staying together to really mix it up, because you have to neutralize the British Isle in some way. You got to, what it is, you got to shut down the Commonwealth Navy. You got to stop it somehow, because Germany cannot move further out, without the British being stopped. Now, if and I have this crazy thing, and you guys will see it as what happens is that, well, when the British aren't, a threat any longer, then the Germans have all their fucking resources to Russia, to the Soviet Union. And that's where the fucking European war is going to be. The Soviets and the fascists. Now, another great whole world that you got, a lot of people don't even see, is fucking China, man. China is a fucking crazy madhouse, man. The Japs are in there, the Western powers are in there, and China has two different, party. You got the CCP and the KMT, man. You got the communists and the nationalists, or the Republicans. And it's just like, dude, it's rife with instability. You got warlords there. I mean, what's going to happen? Is the CCP going to break off and join the Soviets? If the KMT are backed by the Germans, how's that going to work when when the Germans go east and attack the Soviet Union? Is there going to be a front in the east or in the west? In the east, excuse me, in the east, So, I mean, it's rife with all sorts of possibilities. So, Sean's saying 30,000 foot view, nice. I'm trying to run guns into Ethiopia through Initra. Yeah, it's true, man. So, Ethiopia is another great thing, dude. So, the Italians, man, dude, if the Italians, even before the Germans are in the fray in North Africa, dude, if you had the Italians with it and motivated, man, they could take this. They could take the Suez, dude. They could get that North Africa thing going. And if they do run into problems, because again, you got to have the Commonwealth neutered in some way. France is going to go either way, because France, look, and I don't prescribe to the French just giving fuck. I don't think they're pussies. I don't think they're fucking traitors, any of that bullshit. But they did have problems in their command, and their fucking, the Vichy government fucked France. Now, saying that, they're still in play. So if France is gonna, if you decide to go along the way that France, kind of crumbled, then you have the Vichy working with the fascists. Then you got Vichy French colonies, in North Africa, and they're being backed. They're backing up the fascist Italians, and they can do all sorts of shit, man. With Egypt, and if you don't have the Commonwealth together and running it all, dude, Egypt's gonna crumble. I mean, the British, stuff there is just it's not gonna work. So next thing you know, you have fascists controlling the Med. So there's a lot of things that you can. And look, and I'm not a fascist, guys, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create this timeline that makes the world even more fucked up. Even more fucked up. So if and unfortunately the way to do that is you gotta prevent the good guys, right? The non-fascists from doing what they did. Because it was a foregone conclusion that the Germans would have never fucking won World War II. Ever. They just won. The Soviets would have fucking, even if the Soviets would come in and just annihilate. They just, too many people, and and the Germans it wouldn't happen. And when America got in against the Germans, I mean, shit. So if you want to prolong the war and make it to a situation where all of a sudden this new tech is introduced, and then the belligerents are doing all this weird shit, you got to change up the status quo of the actual history, or it's just not going to work. Yeah, so I mean, Ethiopia, dude. I mean, there's some cool shit in Ethiopia. One of the big things is I want to say that the Holy Grail, technically,
the Ark of the Covenant,
the Ethiopian Christian church. I can't remember what it was called. Sorry, guys, if you're part of that, but I just don't remember. that they say they either have the cup of Christ or the spear of Longinus. Dude, you can work that into like an Italian versus Ethiopian thing, where the Ethiopians like gain access to like that kind of reliquary, and it's supernatural, and it lays waste to the Italians. The next thing you know, Ethiopia is like a new power or some shit. That'd be cool, like some mystical means right there. To me, the interest part is, so Ryan saying to him, the interesting part is the depth of thinking in all of this. Yeah, not just let's have mechs, but why, how they came about through a lot of different other means. For example, for him, he picked later, like 45, to go with the most limiting resources and all is manpower. Yeah, Germany in my world was the first to build mech and leads a lot of the development, mainly because they have to find a way to have. Yeah, so, I mean that's another thing. It's like if you're going late war, dude, like in my world, there's going to be a point. It's called the turning. I won't tell you when it happens, but the world changes. Something happens to the world, and all the world's dead rise up to feed. So if let's say it happens in 45, dude, there's a lot of dead fucking people in 1945, and they stand up and they start feeding off the living. Holy shit, that's no bueno across the planet, And then if you're doing like manpower shortages, dude, that's where you got women. That's why you can have these armies of female Soviets, all these armies of female Germans or Americans or whatever. This is where you get into atomic battlefields. You got infantry, and gas masks and all that stuff, because they're fighting on an atomic battlefield. Because certain belligerents, will say, if you stay in somewhat true to the story, the timeline, America would have atomics, and Germany would probably have atomics, and that's it. And then if depending on where the Brits are, I mean, I don't know, but you'd have limited atomic exchange. If the Germans had if the Nazis had atomic weapons, they'd be dropping it on the fucking Soviets left and right. So for sure in your Weird War gaming that you'll be playing some NBC fucking warfare against the Soviets and the Nazis. That's just a fucking given if you're gonna go atomics. Now, when you're also talking about like man shortages, things get desperate. So guess what? Fucking chemical and biological warfare. I mean, listen. A lot of people out there don't want to get this heavy in their Weird War II, and that's fine, man. Don't have Nazis because it's bad. Don't get too heavy because it's too real, and that's fine. And if that's how you want to play it, then that's how you would play it. But I want to play hardcore historical Weird World War II, and biological and chemical warfare. Every fucking belligerent had it. They just didn't use it much. The Japanese used it against the Chinese. I remember the only thing that happened in Europe, there was a big like, I think it was a mustard gas explosion in Italy, like a U.S. cargo ship like just blew up, and it was full of mustard gas. I think it killed a bunch of people, but other than that, they didn't use any chemical. Let's see. Ryan also says he wanted to limit the air forces. Yeah, so, and that's another way to keep, another thing, I think, in my opinion, to keep Germany alive so it could continue on and cause hell in the storyline, is that, gotta stop the Allies and their bombing raids, and just, another thing is America. You gotta keep America neutral, or not fighting in Europe, or supporting the Allied cause, or maybe they go it alone against Japan, or if the Commonwealth collapses, maybe America and maybe there's a North American, kind of like a NATO, but just in North America, you have America, Canada, and Mexico. Maybe they all team up to like fortify against all the issues that are going on in the world. So, man, there's lots of shit. And like I've been researching a bunch of South America stuff, dude. that is a battlefield that is, dude, it's like, it's pretty close. It was going to happen anyway, but things, happened a certain way and it didn't. But man, Germans were in there, the Japs were in there, you had the other European powers in there, and they were all vying. And America was kind of sweating because there was a time when the Germans were talking to the Mexicans. Even the Americans even had a plan to invade Mexico to secure the oil wells, the oil fields. So I mean, you can just go crazy with all that stuff. Let's see. Also, Germany leaned into the occult. Yeah. See, and that's and the occult side and like the mythos stuff that can really be like a leveler. Okay, so let's say the Japanese and they're kind of like their traditional kind of ghosts, Oni, whatever they call them, that kind of like, traditional monster kind of superpower, dragons, whatever. That can come in and play and support, the Japanese empire. And then you can do that with almost any culture. Like, the Germans can have Nordic, folklore, and the Soviets would have like Baba Yaga, and then the Soviet, the Russian, and the Soviet Union, various states, their folklore. And you can, Americans would have the Native American influences. You'd have, skinwalkers and, medicine men and shit like that being in the American ranks or whatever. And even like, African aspects, from the African American population in the U.S. You'd have that those kind of occult or just folkloric kind of stories or whatever that can be part of it. So. Oh, did you? Oh, so Jason said he 3D printed a sweet Ark of the Covenant for his 148 model. Oh, that's sweet, dude. Oh, that'd be cool, dude. Yeah, I have an Ark of the Covenant. It's pretty cool. Yeah, so I mean, the technology is a big thing too. It's like if in your Weird War you have the Axis and the Allies as organizations, if one of those have some sort of super tech, more than likely they're going to share it with their partners. Not necessarily all the time, but I mean, I would think like if the Canadians discovered some sort of super tech, they'd share it with the rest of the Commonwealth and the Americans, and all maybe. I don't know about the Soviets. See, that's another thing. You can go in my world, in my timeline. Eventually, the Soviets are going to be added alone, dude. Well, the Soviet Union and like the communists, the communists, those that are communist in the world will be backing the Soviets, and America, won't be. The Allies won't exist. So without that kind of cooperation, Western European nations are going to fall. The colonies are going to fall um, to the fascists. But then who's to say that you got superpowers? You got civilians that aren't, that are touched in some way, rising up and being able to repel certain invasion or whatever. So I mean, and then hell, I've even got the forces of Atlantis. Atlantis has been keeping quiet until the War of the Atlantic, and they're like, okay, we're done with this fucking surface world bullshit. The Atlantic Ocean is ours now. Any surface man in it is an enemy, and we're going to attack you. So just think of that. Just think if the Atlantic Ocean is shut down. Can't use it. Because the forces of Atlantis are patrolling it, right? Or next thing you know, you got all these countries fighting Atlantis because it's like we can't fucking not have access to the Atlantic fucking Ocean. Yeah, Ryan was saying the Soviets were kind of on their own. I see that if Stalin stays in power, right? He's just going to go with the commies. I mean, I think that alliance, the Allied alliance, was going to end. either if the war ended, or I think it was eventually going to end anyway. The Soviets and the Allied powers were just, they didn't mesh very well. It was kind of like the Finns back in the Germans. It was like, it was a bitter thing to choose, but it was like, what is it? The enemy of what? The enemy, yeah, the enemy of my enemy is my friend type of shit. So, but anyway, but yeah, there's a lot of cool. But the Soviet Union is massive. It's fucking massive. And they had like a lot of satellite nations around it too that would bolster, that as well. And then and you could, like, in America, we had the Red Scare type of thing going on, and you could have that across the planet. You could have that in South America easily. You could have that in Russia, or in Africa, and the CCP in China. You got maybe they're fighting the KMT, and they're fighting the fucking the Japanese as well. So it's like, I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, so like the Japanese now, I see the Japanese wouldn't survive the war either. I mean, I honestly, like, in almost any situation, the fascist powers just would not be able to maintain what they did early in the war, as the nation started to, like, defend themselves. They just don't. I just don't. Unless there was some big thing, some big, whatever it is, that boosts their power and their influence or their military capabilities or whatever, the fascists just would never have won it. In my opinion. Eventually, it all collapsed. But yeah, so I mean, it's interesting to go through history book. Like, listen, guys, a big resource for this kind of shit is Wikipedia. Go to Wikipedia. Let's say, like, Ryan, you're talking about, you're doing kind of a late war 1945 or whatever. Just go to Wikipedia and plug in 1945, right? And it'll give highlights of every single day. January 1st, January 2nd, kind of like highlights of things that happened. And in that, you can, like, pick little nuggets of, like, oh, that's cool. Like, there was an outbreak of cholera in here, and it killed a bunch of people. And then you go, well, maybe that wasn't cholera. Maybe that was a biological attack by somebody, or some shit. So you can do that kind of crap. Yeah, I mean, I'm like you, Ryan. I want a World War II that's weird, not a weird World War II, if that makes sense. Because, I mean, it's easy to just say, it's like, oh, we got walkers, and these people haven't, but these don't. And it's like, I'm a big fan of Dust, man. I love the look of it. I love the walkers. I love the minis are great. I wasn't a big fan of the game. The gameplay's fun. It's like a board game, right? The Dust Tactics. Only played Warfare once. It's okay. But I think it was a little more fantastical than I would have gone. It's just like, oh, we have walkers because of the real technology, and the Nazis are gone, and this is that. And this is why it's happening. I don't know. I mean, I get it. You can't have this super detailed fucking timeline and because you're trying to sell a product, and you're trying to bring people that not necessarily want to do this kind of heavy fucking reading in the background, and you got to keep it simple. I get it. But that's why I'm playing my own thing, because I want this heavy fucking historical deviation and, like, subtlety. So Ryan says, but being an engineer, I guess I try to anchor on the tech first. A big part of enjoyment for me is just seeing the evolution of the normal stuff, like Patton's, Chaffee's, the E-Series stuff, yeah. So, like, you can get a lot of, paper Panzer shit, nowadays, everybody's got an STL, for fucking everything. I would probably go like in my timeline. I'll probably go with like an E series, like 44. We're doing the E series, and that's fucking it. So everything else is retired, and the E series is what it is until whatever. But like you got cool stuff like real tech. You got infrared technology kicking. You got guided weapons. You got all sorts of cool shit. You got anti-tank guided missiles. Um, it was all right there, man. It was all because of, and that's what war does, man. It drive, and as shitty as it sounds, but wars drive innovation. Out of desperation of a nation, to protect itself, they innovate for these one ups to keep their fucking people and themselves alive, and all this innovation happens, and it's mobilized, and then it gets on top of that, it gets innovated. The innovation gets innovated. So yeah. So I mean, again, for you to make the Axis survive any longer than they did in the real life, you got to get weird in there. You really got to get a weird concept into your timeline, or it's just not gonna happen. I mean, shit, fucking Germans are using gasifying engines and synthetic rubbers and I mean, all sorts of shit just because they've just been bombed to hell. And the Japanese, they never developed the convoy systems like that the Allies did, and they were just being picked off piecemeal. So even if they had these warehouses of raw materials from these other nations, it was hard to get it anywhere. And then it's they would have never suppressed inland China ever, like militarily. The Chinese would just dig in, or they'd just vanish. Country's so damn big. The Japanese, they'd control the cities and stuff, but the Chinese would always be blowing them to hell. But yet, in my opinion, guys, for you to run a realistic, I say realistic, but it's weird war. You gotta neuter the Commonwealth. You have to. With them in play, the Commonwealth as it was, you can the fascists do not have the wiggle room to get bigger or better. They just don't. And you gotta isolate America as everybody's manufacturer. Because I mean, if you close down think about this, even if Commonwealth is still around and it's still happening, if FDR didn't do the Lend-Lease, holy shit, the Soviets would be fucked. I mean, they got so much shit from the Americans and the Allies that they wouldn't have been able to maintain like they did without it. Because they were getting their asses kicked until a couple years in, and then because of the Lend-Lease and they were able to blunt the fucking Germans, they were able to get that industry going again. But yeah, if you got to neuter the Commonwealth and you got to keep America in some sort of isolationist stance. Let's see. So Ryan says, here's another question. How much on the scale you playing drives this? I think the fantasy stuff can cater to small games if it doesn't mean... Well, see, that's the thing. So, I think in my, at least in my timeline, fantasy exists, but it's small. It's in small numbers. It's not like you're fielding armies of ghosts. It wouldn't be like that. Or even if you had the ability to control, let's say zombies. Okay, that's a big trope. Everybody fucking uses it, but you gotta think if you go hardcore Weird War and historical, a lot of belligerents won't fucking use them. The people would not allow their governments to reincarnate their fucking fallen loved ones into flesh-eating ghouls. They just would not the Americans wouldn't have it. The Brits wouldn't fucking have it. Most of the Commonwealth nations would not the only people that I could think of would be Soviet Union and the fascist nations. Those are the only fucking countries that would ever actually do a zombie army kind of thing. So because there's no fucking if I get killed in battle and then I'm resurrected as some undead ghoul, my fucking family's gonna freak the fuck out. They're gonna march on DC like everybody else's family, and they're gonna this cannot be. It doesn't matter. We got to keep our humanity. But when you can't do that shit in a fascist country, they'll just fucking kill you. I don't give a shit. They'll just add you to the zombie horde. Yeah, so and that's the thing. It's like that's why you have to neuter America as the world's manufacturer. You have to. If America stays isolationist, even more than it was, FDR didn't want it to be, but the Congress and the Senate did. But if you keep it a staunch isolationist, dude, it changes everything. I mean, America becomes a powerhouse when it fucking gets pissed and something like if you have let's say you keep isolationist, FDR's out of the picture, and Pearl Harbor happens. Okay, the Japs might kick the shit out of the Americans like they did in real life, dude. But the American industry would kick in and just bulldoze the Japs, even if they weren't getting help from the Commonwealth or even dude. The Americans would have Americans won the Pacific, and the Soviets would win the fucking Europe. So you gotta figure out a way to limit that, or give maybe the Japanese have Godzillas. that'll fucking stymie the U.S. fleets as they just get ripped down into the waters, by giant lizards. And that's another thing. Politics is going to be a big thing, man. Like in my world, where they have that Giuseppe Zingara guy, he was a real guy, and he wasn't. I mean, I guess he was kind of communist, but in my world, they made him like, I was an agent of the Soviet Union, and I'm here to kill you, capitalist pig dogs. And just like in the U.S., man, when after Pearl, a Hawaiian native citizen took in one of these Japanese pilots that got shot down and cared for him, and then when the American found out about it, that's when they fucking instituted the fucking incarceration and concentration camping of all the Asian, Japanese Americans on the West Coast. It's because of that. You have those forces in power that say, this is a threat, Mr. President. Look what they did with this pilot. They're going to act like that. If the Japanese invade the mainland, they'll do the exact same thing and they'll turn on us. So, dude, it's that fucking easy. And when you have a country and a world that's in fear, you can manipulate populations with that kind of shit. These false flags, all this kind of stuff. And you can get hardcore political. And again, a lot of people don't want to do that, and that's fine. You just want to, but if you want to make a campaign and why it's developed into this, and this might just be just a writing exercise, guys, for yourself. You can get that crazy. Yeah, I mean, chemical weapons and all that, and then you can take it up into space, man. You can have the tech advances fast, and we got orbital spacecraft, dropping bombs on areas, and all sorts of cool shit. Yeah, you got like the fifth columnists, fear. That's another thing is you got that political, variable that is rarely put into fucking games, man. And I get it because politics is messy, and politics, people get fucking butt hurt, and first of all, guys, it's a fucking game. That's all it is. But politics can make things happen in a weird way. So you got fucking communists fighting like Michigan State Guard, in Detroit. That'd be cool. That's a cool fucking like skirmish game or whatever. You got a riot, right? That's being, perpetrated by communists. They get, everybody pissed off and there's a big riot. The next thing you know, there's communists coming out of everywhere, killing, cops and whatever. Then the state guard is, it's a National Guard now, but back then it was called the State Guard. They mobilize. Then you got like fascist, fifth columnists fighting State Guard in, Alabama or whatever the fuck, or in your countries you could have the fascists, in England, you could fighting, whatever. So I don't know. But yeah, you get all sorts of crazy. You can get all these political armies and whatnot, put them in play, and you can have these skirmishes, these battles in the streets. Not so much tanks and stuff. It'd be like a very British Civil War. That's a great set of rules. When I first got that, the guy who wrote it sent me a copy of it, and I'm reading this, and dude, it's like over my fucking head because this is what's cool. These guys know, they know the UK. They know all the stereotypical bullshit. They know, the South doesn't like the North because of this, or there's that cultural kind of butting of heads, or whatever it might be, and they write that into their rules, because these rules aren't like a rule book per se. It's basically like a campaign that tells you, and I'm just making this shit up because I'm ignorant as fuck when it comes to the UK and its groups and its areas and whatever. I'm an American. I'm fucking only America, right? But you have the Scottish are fighting against the Welsh, and it's these groups because of this, and they're doing it because they want to retain the dominance of this area, and it's mining or whatever over whatever the fuck. So it's a great read. If you guys give it a very British Civil War, it's a great set of books, man. It's fantastic. Exactly. It's like, yeah, exactly. So Ryan's saying it's like how we know why Texas and Californians they think different, and Republicans and Democrats think different. I don't have that insight to UK politics or German politics or Russia or whatever it might be. So it's fun to read, going back and reading all I read that in 1930 the Brits passed a law saying that all political uniforms are banned. So you can wear your fascist black jumpsuit anymore because it's causing problems. It's that kind of shit. I didn't know that fucking kind of shit existed, but it did. And they gave more police powers to the police to quell any kind of disturbances in the streets, to keep the peace and all that shit. So as you read all this shit, it just comes up and it's great. Yeah, I mean, Mosley, you had fascists fucking everywhere. We had fascists in the States, man. There was fascists fucking all over the place, man. You had communists all over the place. And then you can come up with your own shit. You can have Cthulhu. You have the Cthulhu, the Starry, the cult of the Starry Sky or whatever. Maybe that's a political party somewhere. Maybe there's a political party of that in Morocco, right? And they take over, whatever. I mean, you can add these political armies, and you don't have to do the politics of it on the battlefield, but all of a sudden you've got the cult of the Starry Wisdom, army fighting against local authorities in Morocco or some shit. That'd be cool. Yeah, you gotta read a lot, man. And that's great, get your brain percolating, read this shit. And you can come up with these fucking conspiracies, man. You make up your own shit. I got Atlantis. Where the fuck did Atlantis come from? I got army. I got a full army of Atlantis. I'm gonna be fucking using it in our campaign. You know, you can have, you know, the center of the earth peoples or whatever the fucking aliens come down. The Migo come down and say, hey, we want some human brains in jars, motherfuckers. Or give us your brains. They come down and start sucking out brains, man. But well, that's the thing. You know, it's like your intent to read to kind of weird something up, but you're learning the history of something. Like I I only knew about Ethiopia and the Italian conflict just in passing, right? Just through in my history studies. But when I went to back, like, okay, what can I do in Ethiopia to change it or whatever and make it more, whatever? I went in and I started reading about it all, the conflict, you know, 2 year war there, you know, and all that shit, or like China, like right now we're in China. I've learned so much shit about China that that is a front that is rarely spoken about in the West, right? And then the shit that you get, you know, in like China that they're making, you know, it's all jingoistic CCP stuff, which is fine. That's what all fucking a lot of war movies are. You know, we're better, they're worse, whatever, and that's fine. But when you really dive into it, man, it's a complex situation and it's rife for manipulation into a weird historical timeline. But it's making you use your brain. It's bringing you this knowledge that you fucking didn't even have. And all because you want to see how you can get a fucking walker in your, you know, your Italian army, in your weird World War II Italian army in 1943. It's great. That's another thing. It's like no one else can say, well, you can't have that Mark 17, you know, bullet Dodger armored mechanical walker in the Battle of the Bulge because those were only deployed in, you know, North Africa. You know, no one can say that shit because it's your fucking story. It's yours. That's what's Weird World War II is so fantastic. You can make it yours completely. Completely. You know, why are the Japanese fighting with the Poles? Well, if a lot of people don't know, the Japanese and the Poles had kind of like a treaty with each other. So who's to say if the Germans are back on the Chinese, who's to say the Japanese aren't back in the Poles? And then when, you know, September 1st, 1939 kicks off, guess what? You got Poles and Japs fighting against Soviets and Germans. Or some shit. You know, it's that, it can be that crazy. It's awesome. Yeah, it's great. It's really cool to see how other people's like weird war evolves or how they came to it. It's so much fun. I have a, like Ryan. I have a huge. I love it when I, you know, I so badly. If I was rich, which I'm not, fucking far from it, I would have yearly in the middle. I would have a weird war convention, and it would be nothing but weird war. It'd be Weird World War II, Weird World War One. You know, they got the silver bayonet. Anything weird. We can all converge. All us weird war weirdos can converge in one space and just geek out on some weird war. And then us all just get together, pounding some beers, talking about what ifs and different tech and, you know, be it from the Napoleonic to World War II or, you know, fucking from beyond or whatever. But that would be so much fun just to me. But the thing about Weird War, it's so small, man. The genre is so small. And, like around here, no one fucking plays it. The only people that play it are the people that are involved with me. And, it's hard to get anybody else to play it because, you know, and that's fine. It's just not what they're into. But it's just, Weird World War II can really be a lot of fun, and it doesn't have to be mechs and dragons and monsters. It can be, you know, it could be fucking, you know, in, you know, I don't know, Native Americans, you know, fighting in, you know, Europe or some shit. Just something different. I don't know. Just it could be anything. That just something subtle. I hope I'm back. Yeah, we're approaching the hour. I try not to go over an hour on Facebook because it usually like starts to get crazy. But yeah, man. So all you guys that are here, you know, I know that this is kind of a limiting kind of thing. I wish I'm looking into getting like a Zoom, something like Zoom where we can like several people can like all talk at the same time or some shit. That I think that would be fun. Like I can like get with some people, and if some people wanted to sit down and talk about a topic, we could all get together and just talk, and then also talk to. I think that'd be a lot of fun. That would be cool. But listen, you guys don't be afraid to like go to the Weird World War II Facebook and just talk about your timeline or whatever. A lot of just I usually if it gets stupid political, like someone gets butthurt or starts taking it fucking too far, I always approach people, just say bring it back. Let's keep it in a wargaming context. But there's always somebody that fuck, but it happens. Just like any historical context. You could be playing a World War II game and again someone's playing the Nazis and they're fucking freaking out, or someone's playing the Soviets and they have a problem with the Soviets and they're fucking freaking out, or whatever the fuck. So I don't know. It's a goddamn game. So but yeah, I think I need to figure out a way to where we can actually like talk to each other. I think that'd be a lot of fun. But all right, well listen guys, it's an hour in. Ryan, it's always a pleasure, brother. We need to, and Sean, thanks for swinging by, and J Boy, hey man, call me tomorrow. Whenever if you're at home, call me. I catch up. I didn't talk to you in a few. But yeah, you guys, take some pictures of your shit. Play some games. That's a big thing, man. Make some videos. Make some battle reports. And you don't have to do a video battle report, but do a narrative battle report. Take some pictures. Throw it on the site, man. Tell your buddies to join up and like the channel and give some suggestions and shit. So should be a lot of fun. All right, guys. It's always a pleasure seeing you guys. And whatever you do, whatever timeline you choose to choose, you keep it weird. All right, guys. Take it easy.
Twist.